Okay, so we're going to start wiring our arcade machine for our JAMMA as we did our console top for this. We're going to go ahead with everything else. Now everything else here I have laid out is all we're going to need to get this sucker up and running. I've got a couple of different ends and stuff like that I'll need, but as like everything else, you just check out the PDF and it should have all that stuff on there. And then as you see it pop up here, that's when you'll need it. So these speakers, I don't need to put a lead to them from the speaker itself before I install them. That's actually going to be the lead that's coming off of the harness itself, so we're going to utilize as much as we can of that. And then obviously, as I said before, the volume control for master volume is here, and then when you go inside to program and stuff, you'll have some other things there. You're also going to see at some point in time, I'm going to add a 3-button kind of mount in here, and I'm going to put 3 buttons in there. That will be the other cables that are here, and I'll run a ground to that as well, and then we will have those 3 buttons for programming. Okay, I think you only need the one like 4 and 5 button, but I just put 6 just to, why not just throw it all in there, so then you're good to go. That way if I do decide to put 6 buttons or more onto my control top or whatever, I have all the wiring, I have everything I need, and it's all tested and I know that it works. All right, so this one here, just to make things a lot easier for everybody, so we're not cutting into massive electrical and doing all that fun stuff, we are using a power bar. This one is from Amazon Basics. It's pretty standard stuff. What I'm going to be doing is putting it probably right around in this spot here, or I'm going to be well over here. I haven't decided. I'll kind of do that one on the fly, which is fine. And then we're going to come out and it comes down through here like so. And then you just have your wire that comes out. So when you transport it, you take the door off, you throw the cable back in, you close your door, there's nothing there so that it won't drag, cut, or break later on down the road. Yeah, so I'll probably end up putting it where I'm saying there now, because then I'm going to be putting our switching arcade power supply out here so that it's easier to work on instead of vice versa. So we'll be good to go. Our switching arcade power supply. Now, these, when they come out of the box, what happens is they come out at 220 or 240 volt. You want to switch it to the 110, 120. It's actually 115. And then you switch it over. It's just a little dinky switch in there that you can get your finger in and change that over. So make sure you change that over after, because if you put this in, you wire everything up and it's all good to go. If you don't switch that over, you go to power it all on. Everything looks like it powers on, but it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. These JAMMA boards do not like that. So the 60-in-1s, 19-in-1s, the 412s, that kind of thing, the ELF boards and stuff, they will fry on those ones when you do that. The new Pandora's boxes and stuff, I don't know what technology they used in that one, but it won't usually do that. It just has a little thing that it just stops and it just won't fire up, so you're good to go. These ones do not have that, and I don't know why they didn't make the change. But they did not. So I am going to start putting this in and I'll show you how it's done. We're going to stop in between here and there. This is a really small space. I'm going to be working in it and you might not be able to see exactly what I'm doing. So if that happens and we know that's happening, then we'll just either fade out or we'll show whatever, fast forward through it, and then I'll go over exactly what I did for each step so you can see what's going on, just because it is a tight space. All right. So let's start here. So I'm just eyeball measuring this. That's fine. That's, you can do that. Do whatever you want. Now this is a 3/4 inch screw. If I hammer that, that's going to go all the way through. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so you got to make sure you watch what you want there. Use whatever screws you want for these. They don't come in kits from us and all that stuff, so you're kind of on your own. I'd go with a 1/2 inch or whatever, but I have 3/4 here and I've done this quite a bit. So I'm just eyeballing it out. As you can see, I'm lining it up. Giving myself a little extra. And now we're in. Slide it down, good to go. Ain't going anywhere. Happy days. Right, so I will zip tie all this in as well to give myself as much cable as I possibly can so that it's all tied in, and I will show you how that's done as well, so that you can get a pretty good idea. It'll probably just come straight through like so. It's not a big deal there for that. So Zip ties, that's where these things come in super handy for the tie downs. You can use different ones. They have other ones that you can use, kind of like a plastic, and screw it in. It's a little square, you screw it in, and then you take a regular like zip tie like that and then zip around it onto your wire. But this is probably the best way to do your wire management because it'll save you time and probably money as well. You don't have to mess around with it too much. It's nice that way. The things I like. Pass on the fun stuff to you that way. Okay, so I set this down to 5. I always do that. This might even be 4. Plywood's really soft, so when you're putting in these short screws and stuff, they could strip in there very easy, and then you get a bunch of holes everywhere and you get frustrated trying to set these up. So if you really want, you can do them by hand, but by the time you see how many we're actually putting in, you're probably not going to want to do that. It's going to hurt your wrist after time. You're getting yourself some carpal tunnel. You don't want that. But with these, I don't shy out with these either. I know zip ties can be pricey, or people don't care, but I don't know. I have a little bit of OCD when it comes to making it look nice and pretty on the inside. Customers buying something from us or whatever, you kind of want to give the same quality all the way through from start to finish instead of just what it looks like on the outside or whatever, right? Okay, so there we go. We got our main power coming into our cabinet. It's pretty standard, pretty simple, straightforward stuff. Happy days. I've already tried the door on this, so I already know that it'll work with the wire in there. Now we're going to get into our video management and stuff because our monitor is up high. This 19-in-1, it only has a VGA out on it. It's not HDMI. Doesn't matter. It'll give you that nice native resolution that you're looking for the original gaming and stuff. The lower quality your video is, the better when it comes to the old school games. If you start getting into 4K monitors, you start getting into HDs and upscales and all that fun stuff, then you'll run into issues for viewing on your actual monitors. And I think, where did we go? Got our little 12-volt adapters. And we're good to go. All right, so then that's our first plug-in right there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this up. I'm going to get that kind of in there, but I want to get my console in 100%. So I'm going to do my screw in from the bottom here, like we did with these screws here. I'm going to do that before I move any further up, and then I will tie this all in, and I will come back and show you how I did that. All right, so we're gonna keep going down here, get our video in there nice. These ones will be a little sparing because I'm screwing into a removable panel that you'll have to take these off if you ever removed that panel. Technically, you shouldn't really have to. The monitor comes out from the front, so it'll be nice and easy, but I still don't like screwing stuff into removable pieces if I don't have to. This one here, I have no choice unless I just want to make it hang, which in the end, you're the only one that's really going to see that, so you can make that choice for yourself. I don't like that. And I'm not going to be the only one looking inside these, so, because it's going to somebody else, so. All right, so I'm coming into a situation here where I'm going to be going up my up the side and stuff with my sound and everything, so I can get into that. Now I'm going to start going up inside there, and I'll hang the wires up top out from the top. I only have to go up one side. So I'm going to go up that side because I'm already kind of working in there, and my game board is going to go in on the side here like this or like this. I'm not sure yet. Since I got the VGA coming in like that, I might do that and then leave it back as far as I can. And then this harness can just come in loosely there. I will tie it up a little bit and maybe put a thing on here to hold it up nice so it's out of the way and there's no actual like weight distribution on it. But you want to make it so that it's removable if you have to take that console top off. So you don't want to connect all this stuff. That's kind of why I went through all the trouble to make this look as nice as possible and segment it out as nice as I can, is specifically for the issue that you want to be able to unplug all those things and then take your console off and then work on it somewhere else instead of working on it inside this. We do that for any size machine, but for a small machine like this, as you can see, it's a little bit harder to work inside of. But at the same time, with it being removable, it makes your life that much easier. Okay. An extra tie in this one that I shouldn't have. So I'll cut that off. Make my line longer. Push it up and through. Okay. So this here will be the only thing that's going to be really hard to remove from the actual speaker itself. But with any luck, you won't have to really remove any of this stuff. And then you can just take the marquee off to do that. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to send it up there to do all that fun stuff. And I'm going to tie this in right here. The other thing you could do if you really wanted to is just tie these into, set a bunch of different wires coming down and then just do a connector, like a standoff piece that connects all the wires here so you can disconnect it easily. Down here if you'd like. I don't foresee myself needing to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and wire this in nicely. And if I do have to do it, I will guess I pay the price later. Try to think of everything, but you can't think of it all the time. All right, so now I know I have some wire up there for that. I've got my wire down here for this, and I've got some other stuff left over. So we want to make sure we're going to have enough wire and that we've tucked everything in the way we want it. So as you can see, it can get to be a rat's nest pretty fast. And then you got to kind of find a way to make it pretty for you. Maybe not put everything all in at once, like I'm going to do here. It's all good. Okay, so I'm going to put this in, line myself up to where I need to be. I'm going to come back with a piece I'm going to make for the top up here so that I can keep going with my buttons and stuff. So I can show that to you. It'll be pretty simple the way it looks, so you don't really need to know how it's made. I'll show you what I did with it and how to make it, if that's what you want to do, if you have to follow along and do this. And then I'm also going to tie in up here in the meantime, so then we can kind of show you a visual of that all at the same time before we move forward going down, because I like to be as methodical as possible and work from one direction to the end and call it a day. I don't like going from here to there, here to there, here to there. When you install something, I try to finish it so that it's just kind of all together. Unfortunately, when you get lines like this where they have to go the same direction as other ones, it's nicer to tie them all in at the same time. You might not be able to do that, or you might do one way and then go, oh, I forgot this line, and then you have to tie more into it, whatever. You're just going to have more zip ties on it. It's not highly recommended to take your little zip ties that you've used already and cut them off and then put a new one on. Just kind of leave them all on there and call it a day. Then you won't cut any of your wires and ruin anything. Another thing too is here, it'll show me how much excess I'm going to have here. So now I know, and then I can tie that all up and loop it up all nice, and then just leave myself that big drip loop up here and then it comes down and it'll go into that spot as well. So we will be right back with all that fun stuff. All right, so as I said I was going to do, I did my little coil for my VGA, and I can tighten that up now so that it's good to go, because that's not going to fall out anymore. And then you can see up here I went with my speaker wire and went up the side, and I left myself about 1.5 feet outside the speaker in the front, which you'll see when we start to do the speaker stuff, and then I'll show you what I'm doing there as well. Unfortunately, the speakers will probably be one of the last ones we go into after I'm done in the back here, which is no big deal. We set it up that way. I still have to set up a LED light and everything else in there as well. So we're going to get all this tapped in nicely, and then we are going to tie into some other 12-volt stuff as well. All right, so we are going to start moving on down the line. Okay, what I talked to you here before was this button kind of mount that I'm going to do. I know I said I'd do it up here, but I got the VGA there. It could work. I have no real issue with it there. I'm just going to be running a bunch of other wires behind it for the buttons, and they're going to stick out. So I want to have access to that. So I'm going to just put it down here like so. It's in the middle. It's good. Everybody can see it. Everybody knows where it's coming from. It'll be easy to access for these cables here that are going to be going on to that. All right, so we're going to do that, and we're going to do these red, white, and blue buttons. Hell yeah. All right, so that's what's going to happen. I'll get moving on this. So I'm using melamine wood glue. Just because I'm using melamine on this, it has nothing to do with anything other than that. You can use whatever wood you want for this. Scrap is best. That's what I used on mine. So we are good to go. Okay, so I'm also going to put this in by hand as well, because I don't really want to start hammering on the drill, going through stuff to the outside of the machine. And I had some preset holes drilled in here so that I'm good to go. And so I'm using a pan head screw that's going to allow for it to suck this wood right to my other piece really well. So when the actual glue dries and stuff, it'll be all squished in there evenly and nicely. But this being plywood, it's soft and it's easy to strip, so I don't want to use a drill if I don't have to, even though these are fairly aggressive. All right, so I'll keep this on the outside, right? And then I'm going to make note, right? So positives on the top, negatives on the bottom. You can see that on the bottom of there. I'm going to keep these prongs towards the outside, so I have as much working space as possible. And I'm going to do that for all of them, okay? Just whatever you do, stay consistent with all the things you do, so that when you have to go back and troubleshoot, you'll know every button's kind of the same, everything's set up the same way, so it's not like, who the hell made this? Just do yourself a favor and take your time. Okay, so it's usually just a quarter turn on these. Anything more than that, you could oblong the inside of this, make it that egg shape, and then the buttons stick and they don't work properly. You don't want that, so you're good to go. So I have to add my ground to here as well, so I'll do that kind of on the side, but I will get that all up and running. And then you can see what it all looks like when we're all done. I have a ground in here that I want to use. Where did you go? There you are. So this is why you save your wiring, just in case you make changes, do all that fun stuff. I'm not going to try to pull this through, and I also have to put a little daisy chain on it, and I have to make it 110. This is 187. That's why I'm cutting it off. I'm not just going all cray. and doing stuff that shouldn't be doing. And then we're going to pull this all the way through.
And bring it out to where we're going. Maybe up right on here. Nope. Nope. One more option. Always the last one. Alright.
Now, even though this one's shorter than the rest of these, I'm going to actually shorten these ones on this line so that it's all good to go, because I don't need all that excess. I want to make sure that it's clean. It was kind of just a temporary setup anyway for these, so I will cut them down. You want to try to stay away from this. I was just trying to do it more for the video to get it all so that you guys could see it all whatever, but until you actually get into it, it's really hard to kind of go with that flow. All right, I'm going to cut this other one off too, because I'm going to make all that speaker wire snug with other stuff and hide it all in there. But like I said, this will be technically removable and all that fun stuff, except for the speaker wire, but those can be cut off and put a little extra little add-on after if you'd like. But like I said, I don't foresee having to take this off. I just want to make it an option. So that's going to come down something like that. And these are going to kind of fork in together around here. This one might be a temporary one as well again, but I want to hide all this excess stuff. Now you could cut this off, but I mean, it's not like they're gonna, looping them and stuff isn't gonna make a difference. It's not gonna affect anything. And then we'll have all that in there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up just a little bit, and we'll walk through whatever I have left on here to get done for your sound. We're getting pretty close. I just want to make sure I have some space for my power supply that we're going to do, and then I'm going to cut up some extra wire and show you how all this connects so that you get your power going to this and get converted to 12 volt. Cool beans. Okay, so I kind of changed my mind just a little bit. I decided I'm not going to make that harness easy to be removed and all that stuff. I know it's going to be fine. I can test it and I can play around with it with all these connections. I've left enough slack here that I could pull the console out, flip it over, and work on it if I need to, that type of thing. So I made a compromise. It just wasn't looking very neat and tidy for me to show you what's going on in here. So I wanted to lay it all out so that we know we can get that all going for you so you can see what I did. All right, so everything's all tied up nice all the way up there with our speaker while we'll flip it around and do the speakers in a minute. This is where we do our video, and the audio is coming directly off the board on this JAMMA harness here. And then I tied in all this extra wire here. So these are those 3 buttons that I added on back there. So you can kind of see that. If you need to pause it or whatever and take a look, that's fine. I tied everything all up nice in there, and I've come down to where my power needs to go for my JAMMA harness. So we still need to connect our switching arcade power supply. So we're going to do that. I'm going to put it right here so I have a good access point for it. And then we're going to tie in our power cable to go to that. Now, how is this power cable going to connect to that? Well, that means I've got to cut off the end and do some funky stuff with it. Now, I don't like to show people that because you know, we're not certified electricians to be showing you how to do it this way and that way and whatever. This is the way we do it. Use, if you can, CSA approved products for your clips and stuff for your ends, and do the best you can there. Obviously, you don't want to deal with power shortages and weird stuff. If you're not comfortable with electrical, then, you know, get somebody who is to do it. But for the most part, this stuff is really simplistic, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did it and do all that stuff. Just, we don't take any liability if you do it wrong. So take your time, watch, and do it right the first time. And don't be clumsy like me. Do as I say, not as I do. Is that what they say? Okay, so I go back and forth and I change the setting on my drill all the time. Now I have it at 7 versus the 5 that I was saying I had it at before, just because I'm going, you know, obviously deeper into the wood. You want to make sure that you don't strip your screw, because you don't want to have tons of holes everywhere. I'm trying to do this one-handed. Just keep losing my screw. So this is when you get this in and do all that stuff. That's why you want to make sure that you switch this thing to that 110, 115 kind of thing, because you don't want to have to take this off to do that again. And so I'm going to keep all this nice and tidy over here. I'm probably going to put one more tie on the back there. I'll lean back in there and get that done. I'm also going to be tying in, I'm going to come from the other side over here. And then I'm going to come across and then come down, or I'll come all the way down and I'll come around over here with my power 12 volt for my LED from up top, so that I'm not coming over all this stuff. That's all fine and dandy if you want to do that. But the problem is now you're crossing over different types of power from different sources, so you don't want to do that necessarily. It'll cause not only interference in your board, the video, your sound, but then you could also do a crossover with interference, and then you can get the melting of the wires and a whole bunch of fun stuff, because they'll conduct themselves and do weird stuff through the insulated thing and whatever. You don't want to go there. So I keep the different power lines for different things completely separate. So I will go the long way and go across here. Even if I go across here, I'll stay an inch or two away from here, and then I'll come down, and then I'll probably go under and around or whatever. I'll come in through here, but I don't want to go side by side or anything like that if I don't have to. It's not necessarily a real bad thing to do. It's just good practice to stay away and keep the circuit separate. I also try to utilize as many of these ports as possible. There's 2 grounds on here. So one of the grounds I'll use for our JAMMA harness here, and the other ground I'll use for our LED light. And then there's just an earth ground for the actual 110 electrical that's going to come in here. So I'll deal with that. So these screw down dealies are just such a dream to work with. They make your life so easy. I do like them a lot. Just make sure that the harness, when you get them, the connectors are on there really good. I've had them fall off every once in a while. It's not the best. So I have to put a new one on. Try to keep them all nice and straight. I am going to put one more zip tie in there, and then I'll clean this up a little bit, so that it's not just kind of hanging in there like that. And then now I want to measure out our power. Okay, so I'm going to probably go, where are we? It's hard to see when we're doing it this way. Part of the way up. That's why. So basically what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to tie into my line down here. I'm going to come around. Like I said, keep your circuit separate if you can. I'm going to come all the way up through here like so, and then I'm going to come around and I'm going to connect to it there. So that's about right there on here. Oh, sacrilege. Don't do it. All right. You didn't see me do that. Give yourself about 2.5 inches. Just cut the edge of that. Don't go too far with it. I always go a little extra, like 3 or 4 inches than I need, just in case when you put this on, if you cut it and this, like, it's giving me, I'd rather have a little grief trying to pull this off than have a cut wire inside this thing. You don't want to have a nick on top of that, on top of those wires. All right, so be as safe as possible. Don't cut corners either. If you look at that and you go, oh, there's just a little nick in there or whatever, don't be like, oh, that's not going to do anything. Don't use it. Cut that off, start back here. If you have to go through a whole new cable, trust me, it's worth it. Don't screw yourself and do all that stuff. So these are good. I'm happy with them. There's no lines, no cracks, no nothing. I didn't touch them. Right? Just be safe. Right? Cut your ends off. Give them a twist. Twist. All right, go into the magic pocket here. And I use my ends. All right, so pretty basic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie all these in. I'll do this one up at the end when it's all good, because this will kind of have some twists and ripples and whatever in it as that's going along. And I just want to make sure that there's no resistance. So if I screwed this in now, and by the time you get over there and you've got some twist and gross in it, it's kind of hard to work with. So I'm just going to zip tie all this in and get it all going. I'm going to do a couple here, so I'm going to kind of be in the way. You're not going to see me. We'll come back and I'll show you what I did afterwards here. Okay, so this is the top of our switching arcade power supply. It's not 100% done, but basically we could test this thing and play the game now and do all that stuff. We're gonna add a light, and I'm gonna use the ground that's here, and I'm gonna double up on our 12 volt right there when that happens. So I'll loosen that at that time and deal with all that stuff. What I've done in here was tuck this up nicely, and then I came down here and I tied in my line with all this stuff. These are shielded very, very well, like extension cords. You can double them up. That's not like a weird circuit thing that I was talking about prior with the 12 volts. So you can double that up. That's nice. And then I came back around and just gave it as much slack as possible. So technically it's just one big drip loop instead of just going from there to there. You can do that if you want. I just try to keep as much material as possible as original and then go from there. Now, when we fire this up for testing, I'll just mention it now before we actually do that. I'm going to do the speakers next. But you want to disconnect this connection here for your JAMMA harness. You want to take that off on our first power up. There's a little dial here, a little potentiometer on our switching power supply here. You're going to take a little mini screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and we're going to connect a digital multimeter on here, and we're going to check and make sure that it's pumping out 12 and 5 volt. Sometimes from the factory and stuff, it'll come at like 11.5, or sometimes it'll come at 12.5. Usually they're on the money, but every once in a while you get one that's a little off. So I like to test these suckers before I have them actually connected to the board, because if it's too low, the impedance or resistance on it is going to be too much, and then you could actually wreck the board by giving it too low of power. And then if you have too high of power, obviously you could blow one of the diodes or electrodes on it, and then you'll lose something within the board, and you don't want to kind of do that. So you want to make sure you're as close to on the money as possible. Invest in a $20 to $40 digital multimeter. It's going to save you so much grief in the end, and then you'll feel like you just did a little bit of a better job and you're a little more professional. Why not? We do have a video on how to use a digital multimeter, so you could use that as well. And that's all part of this big grandiose plan. So what I'm going to do now is flip around. We're going to do some speakers here. We're going to do the ones that are on the table beside me here. We're going to add those in. These are 8 ohm shielded speakers. They also have a whole piece. So this is all one piece. So when you screw it in, it's got a nice finished look on it, and it's completely shielded. So it's good to go away from your monitor and everything else. We use our nice finishing screws that we use for our marquee. And I will be also taking the marquee off and then we will do a separate video on the LED for the marquee when we show you how to do some soldering and stuff to do that, and then we will do the install of that piece right away, and then we'll be all done. We can test this bad boy out. All right. Okay, so we're gonna flip it around and do the speakers. Okay, so I've left this little pigtail coming out. So what we're gonna do is pigtail from one speaker to the next. So I'm gonna cut this right here. I'm gonna pigtail these two together on either side. I'm gonna put two connectors there, and then I'm gonna push this through, and I'm gonna put two connectors on this end. I'll probably just do the connectors on this end first. You can kind of see what I'm gonna do to make it a little bit easier for myself. The only thing it doesn't really matter which side you go on this one, negative or positive. Obviously, you want it to be negative or positive. I have one of these marked, so I know which one is negative. That's the one with the writing on it. But you don't want to mix and match the negative to the positive. So when we daisy chain these speakers, is what we're doing for the JAMMA off of the actual harness. That's what you want to do, is daisy chain them. So ground to ground, and positive to positive, one after the other, and they will go in line, and it will be mono/stereo sound based off of what it's going to try to output. Okay, so let's make sure I'm going to be able to fit over here, and we're good. All right, give myself as much as I possibly can here. We cut once, and that's the end of that. All right. So, as I said before, I always give myself about 1/2 inch. I want to make sure I've got my one with my writing. I'm all good. These connectors that I'm using are 1/8/7s. That's what's on the speaker itself. All right. Push it through, hang it there, out of my way. Now, when you're putting in these speakers, you kind of have to be a little bit careful. The hole that we made is just a little bit smaller than the outside of that flange in the speaker. So they're actually fairly close to each other. We're close to the edge. So I'm just getting into the edge of it. So I'm actually going to put the screws in a little bit of an angle on there. Sometimes you can use a, if it was MDF, so on the MDF one, I'll probably use the drill, no problem. I'm going to try using just my screwdriver for now and do it by hand, just because it'll make me feel a little bit better. Okay, so negative, positive, and then I give it a little bit of a bend. It's not the best case scenario, but there you are, and there we are. All right. That's always the case. Okay, so what you want to do is square these holes up as best as you can. Okay, and get them exactly where you want them. Make sure that they're in line so they're not wonky and all jinky all over the place. All right, so one screw there. All right, nice fitted look. That's all done. This is overlapping my marquee thing just a tad on the lip on the end there. No big deal. No, I'm not worried about that. It's not going to affect the look. It's not going to affect the machine. It's like literally right on the edge. It's part of the way it was measured because it's right on the edge in the back here too. That piece is the exact same size as the outside of the flange there of the speaker itself. But we are taking this off. So when I loosen this and take that off to get our LED up inside there, I will need to take the first 2 screws out of both of these speakers so that that whole section will pop off. The only other way around that is to make this part bigger, because the speakers are the speakers. They can't really change those. So you can get smaller ones, but that's about it. So I'll zip tie these so they don't like hang all over the place. It's nice. And we're looking at our negative, positive. Then we bend these again. Up. See if we can get a better fit. Just can. Flange is a little bent on this one. Sorry, excuse me. Alright, so we're going to try to line it up as best we can on there. You can draw a line, you can do all that fun stuff. I'm pretty confident and happy with what I'm doing. You do it your way. Now, if the flange is a little bent on these ones, when you tighten it up, it'll bend flat to whatever you're screwing it to. So you don't have to like bend it too much with your fingers or worry about it when you're pulling it out of the package. It'll flatten itself out. Okay, so our speakers are installed and we are ready to go. I got a couple screws that I got to put in here yet still, but I'm going to be taking these ones out. So I'm just basically making a placeholder for this and bending them out where they should be. And we're good to go. Either short a screw or can't find it on the table at the moment, but you get the gist of it. Like I said, I'm going to be taking all this off. So technically what you can do to take these off now, I just kind of leave them on. I don't like taking the screws out of these after we do it. So I'll take out the minimal amount. So we're going to go ahead and I'll take this out and get this ready to rock. Always use this handheld screwdriver for this because you're going to strip it most definitely if you use a drill. So now that I've loosened this bottom part, when I pull on this and I pop it open, see how it came loose? It's still on there, it's all good, and then you can just peel it out if you can get your fingers behind it. You can peel it out, and we're good to go. Oh, she's in there tight, I tell you, like a toy. Not gonna chance it. It's not worth it. It wants to bend out of there. The T-mold itself is flared out, so it's capping off. Basically what I'm saying is the T-mold's a little wider than the marked material because we use the plywood, so you can see how this is bending, but it's only within the confined space of the T-mold itself. It's flat, but I have to bend it to get it out. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a light up in here. We're just gonna use like a 3M or alien tape or whatever when we do it. If we want to put a wood piece in, I might do that, and I'll just do glue, then we'll clamp it to the top. But we're just gonna put an LED strip in there, and then we're gonna solder on an extension of wires, and that wire is gonna be about 2 meters long, and then that's gonna come down around to the bottom, all to the power supply, and this sucker is gonna be done, and we're good to go. So when I do the lighting for this one, I'm also gonna do the lighting for the other one, all right? So yeah, we'll get her all done and happy days. So moving on to lighting, and then we can turn this puppy on.